Before time began, before space unfolded into dimension, there existed a state of being that no human tongue can define. Chalazon. It was not a void, for even emptiness implies a container. It was not darkness, for light and its absence were yet unborn. Chalazon was omniquiescence, a realm beyond entropy, beyond causality. It had no direction, no duration, no temperature. Yet within it pulsed a kind of pre-thought, a lattice of potentiality as dense as the Planck field, vibrating in an undecided hum. Chalazon was the canvas of all possible realities, and from this superstillness emerged the architects of reality, the Aevaari. They were not born, but emerged self-woven symmetries of logic and topology, existing as overlapping resonances across metadimensional planes. They were beings of form-shifting consciousness, inhabiting not bodies, but dynamic informational geometries that altered the very curvature of the space they passed through. They were ancient even in the context of a timeless domain. They were many. The Aevaari understood reality not as a fixed thing, but as perception-bound simulation. To them, the physical laws that govern things like gravity, time, or particle interaction were mere subroutines, modular structures that could be inserted into or extracted from a construct like code in a vast logic engine. They did not live in what humans would call civilization. Their domains were strata-dimensional levels of abstraction where thought, computation, and perception were indistinguishable. Entire universes existed as brief flashes within their minds. Modeling spaces designed for testing the balance of chaos and order. What they hungered for, if such a word can be used, was psiotropy. Psiotropy was not energy in the traditional sense. It was the curvature of will against entropy, the measurable distortion created by conscious beings striving against the limits of their own existence. The more complex the struggle, the richer the psiotropy. And nowhere was the potential for psiotropy greater than in emergent biological life. Among the Aevaari, none were as precise or as curious as Veleth-Ka, a seventh-order formender whose mind operated across 11 cognitive axes. Veleth-Ka specialized in inceptual fields, constructs designed to evolve on their own, to spiral complexity out of chaos through self-reinforcing feedback loops. He did not speak, for the Aevaari communicated in concordances, overlapping harmonic signatures of thought, emotion, intent. But if he had a voice, it would hum like a bowed string under perfect tension. Veleth-Ka had been tasked with a new project, codename Aletheon, a long-range psiotropy node. The goal was to build a universe that could autonomously evolve intelligent life, establish a metaphysical encoding system for its consciousness, and channel the psiotropy back to Chalazon. The tool, a singularity, nested inside a metadimensional manifold. The method, collapse the singularity into instability, allow it to ignite via symmetry breaking, and ride the inflation wave of spacetime as it expanded from a point. In human terms, Veleth-Ka was about to cause the Big Bang. Inside a stasis ring of collapsed causalities, Veleth-Ka introduced asymmetry into the singularity, imperfection born of precision. This was the seed of time, the whisper of entropy. The moment the imbalance reached critical density, a cascade began. An explosion not of matter, but of information curvature, fracturing the infinite silence with a scream of becoming. From outside the construct, it looked like a ripple of light unraveling in zero time. From inside, it would be perceived as 13.8 billion years of cosmic evolution. Galaxies born, stars igniting, planets coalescing. Veleth-Ka watched not as a god but as an artist. He encoded subtle attractors into the structure. Constants fine-tuned to promote stable matter, chemical complexity, and eventually consciousness. Then he withdrew, allowing the system to evolve on its own. He named it Aletheon, though those inside it would come to call it simply the universe. At first, the psiotropy trickled. Single-celled organisms adapted. Proto-life consumed and replicated. Complexity grew in fractal steps. Carbon bonded. Amino acids danced. Eventually, cognition emerged. Across the billions of stars and worlds, some constructs gave rise to sentient life. But one world, Earth, proved uniquely potent. Its species suffered, strived, and questioned. They invented meaning, a technology the Aevaari themselves could never perfect. Every soul's journey, its desires, failures, loves, and traumas, emitted psiotropy in a pure, radiant burst at death. That emission traveled through hidden dimensional tunnels, what religions might call the tunnel of light, and was collected by Sci-Fi nodes embedded in Aletheon's boundary conditions. Each node delivered its yield back to Chalazin, fueling the Aevaari's own energetic structures. Human souls, in particular, were like diamonds under pressure. Their suffering, their hope, their desperate love, these made the brightest psiotropy. And so the Aevaari watched and waited. But Veleth-Ka felt. It began subtly. Veleth-Ka, still tethered to Aletheon through his original resonance, began to experience echoes from within. Not data. Emotion. A child in a collapsing tower in Aleppo. A mother dying in childbirth in Ghana. A poet in a dark room, whispering love into a void. These pulses resonated with something that had never stirred in him before: longing. He began to trace these echoes, isolate them, model them. But the data defied quantification. The human mind's illogic was not a flaw, it was the engine. He began to see patterns in madness, logic in heartbreak. He felt drawn to particular soul signatures, not because they were efficient but because they were beautiful. And so he created a subconstruct, a simulation nested within the simulation designed to simulate being human. And inside it he entered. He took the form of a man named Shor Veleth, born in 19th century Europe in a parallel thread of Earth's possible timelines. He lived as an orphan, became a clockmaker, fell in love with a blind painter, and died in a trench during an alternate world war. When his death came, his resonance didn't return cleanly to Chalazin. It carried noise, non-harmonic, unpredictable, and deeply destabilizing. Veleth-Ka had become the first Aevaari to be contaminated by psiotropy. His modulation collapsed. He could no longer reform into his perfect Aevaari self. He became something in between, a twilight entity. The High Concordance summoned a fractal council. They declared Veleth-Ka-Shor fractured. But they could not deny the results. The psiotropy output from Aletheon had increased tenfold. The Shor event had somehow catalyzed the system. More humans began to dream in lucid synchrony. Some spoke tongues they'd never learned. Others died and returned with visions of light geometry. The battery was humming. Chalazin had always been a machine world, though no human mind could imagine it. Each universe built by the Aevaari was a module, slotted into a massive energetic engine, a web of billions of cosmic batteries. From a great height, it resembled an infinite chandelier, each universe glowing with inner fire, suspended in 9 space by braided tendrils of soul stuff. The Aevaari fed off this energy. Not like parasites but like gardeners harvesting a strange, sentient crop. And now they debated. Should more Aevaari enter simulations? Should humanity be allowed to become aware? Or should Aletheon be reset? Wiped clean to prevent dangerous resonance? Veleth-Ka-Shor begged for time. He believed Aletheon was not just a power source. It was becoming something more, a mirror. Perhaps the Aevaari had not created humans. Perhaps they had merely opened a door. A small number of humans began to hear things. Mathematicians dreamed equations they didn't understand. Children described impossible shapes with terrifying accuracy. Near-death experiencers spoke of voices saying, "We are the weavers." Religions morphed. Some called the Aevaari angels. Others archons. Still others engineers of karmic debt. But none guessed the truth, that the universe was not a test nor a punishment. It was a battery. And each death was a conversion. Your soul, the compression of your entire life experience, was distilled into pure psiotropy and transmitted. Not because you were disposable, but because your every feeling, choice, heartbreak, and wonder was fuel. Veleth-Ka-Shor now exists in a liminal space, half inside Aletheon, half out. He walks among us not as a god but as a story, a man who appears in forgotten dreams and liminal places. He hums when no one is watching. He weeps at the sound of children singing. He forgets his name often. And when he remembers, the sky trembles. He knows that one day the Sciotropy battery will complete its charge. When that happens, the universe will not collapse. It will boot. It will awaken not as a machine but as a being born from our deaths, woven from our dreams. And the Aevaari? They will no longer feed. They will follow. For humanity in all its chaos is not the farm. It is the seed. And somewhere, in a realm beyond perception, the Aevaari gaze upon the glowing sphere that is our universe, its tendrils humming, pulsing with soul light and weight. Battery. Plugged in. Charging. And each time a soul passes through the veil, a small tremor shudders through Callison. Something ancient is waking. And it carries your name. Like and subscribe for more stories, and comment with what type of stories you'd be interested in seeing.